So, have you got your cup of coffee? Because that's kind of key to this, essential to.
I have my apple cider vinegar and water. Will that count?
Well, that's an up on the health and wellness situation. So, so that's pretty good going. So, well, basically, I suppose, because I'm sure a few people out there don't know your story. So a bit of background would be awesome.
Right. Okay. So the reason why I ended up being a clinical hypnotherapist and rapid transformational therapist was because long way back in sort of 10 years ago, just over a decade ago, I was paralyzed and in a wheelchair as a result of surgery from a benign brain tumor. And I had to learn a lot very, very quickly. And interestingly enough, I was sort of told that the chances of me surviving surgery weren't that great. So I had budgeted for not being around. So therefore, I'd written letters to my daughter that she'd have to open when she was 18 and 21, and for her marriage. I put my affairs in order. I'd really sorted things out. And I hadn't really budgeted for the fact that I might really survive. And as the doctor had said, if I survived, I'd be paralyzed for the rest of my life down the left-hand side of my body because of where the tumor was. So to cut a long story short, I found myself paralyzed about 10 days after the surgery. I wasn't really aware of it until then. And then this dawning awareness came on me as I tried to turn in the bed, and nothing happened. It was like a lead weight was attached to one side of my body. And this was a sort of a process and a journey that began that I wasn't prepared for. I had no idea how to do this. I was literally skillless. I knew how to write letters to my daughter when she was 18. I knew what to write when she was getting married. It broke my heart.
Yeah.
But it was something that society has prepared us for almost. You know, it's something that we've heard of before. And, you know, I was pretty young. I was in my early 30s. So I hadn't really thought about a life in a wheelchair, a life confined, and a life which led me to be dependent on other people. So this was something that I had to quickly get in touch with myself and figure a way through, because I was skillless, I was broken. I'd already lost my husband in a tragic accident not so many years before. I'd already lost my brother, my closest brother, to cancer not many years before. And my father had died a couple of years before that. And to add insult to injury, if you really want to know about it, my daughter, my gorgeous daughter, lost the sight in her left eye as a child. So I had so much to deal with. I had so many things to contend with. I had no time to process. I really was somebody who was bobbing around in the ocean, trying to keep my head above water, just trying to paddle against the tide. So there was really not very much maturation going on, or processing of loss, or processing of anything for that matter. So when I found myself in this hospital bed, and lo and behold, I couldn't move. As you can imagine, it was a bit like a massive sledgehammer hit home. Yeah. And I remember crying with my sister-in-law, Jane. She was a psychotherapist. And I remember her crying in the room and saying to her, I so regret this surgery. I so regret. And I'm sure my language wasn't quite as polite. It was probably a lot worse than that, but we'll keep it nice and polite today. Sorry?
Civil.
Civil. We'll keep it civil today. We'll keep it nice. But I do remember heavily regretting the surgery, because I had always been a fiercely independent person. I'd always been finding something new to do, new challenges, new adventures. I had my own business at the age of 23. I loved life so much, and I was a very active person. And the shock and the horror and the misery of being confined to my own thoughts and my own body and not being able to do very much myself. I actually had an injury to my right arm in surgery. So for the first few weeks, I was incapable of feeding myself. And I had been left-handed naturally. And now, of course, I had to retrain myself to use my right hand, and my right hand wasn't working. So it was such an amount of information for my brain to take on board. I was overwhelmed. And so this is the beginning of the story of why I became a transformational therapist.
Well, it is an amazing story. I mean, I call you a modern day miracle. It's immense what you have been through, what you've worked through, and what you've achieved. So tell me a bit more. I don't know about you, but all the time I come up against this kind of, not necessarily ignorance, but people who just really don't understand the full, or maybe a clinical definition of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. I often find people say to me, "Oh no, don't come near me, you're going to make me cluck like a chicken." So give us your definition of that, and then tell us a bit more about how it's helped you in your journey.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, totally right, Jan. A lot of people have strange belief systems around hypnotherapy, and I did too, to be very honest. I remember a story about my brother, one of my older brothers, when I think he was about 15 or 16. And he went to see a hypnotherapist and came back absolutely paralyzed laughing because everybody on the stage had become little leprechauns, and somebody's nose had been put under somebody's armpit. You know, the usual stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, funny. It is terribly funny. But in terms of clinical hypnotherapy, it has called the profession into disrepute, really, because they are completely different things.
Yes.
And hypnotherapy, as you know, Jan, being another rapid transformational therapist, and a good one at that, is that we use hypnotherapy to tap into the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is an absolute jewel. It is the most amazing place because we store all the emotions, feelings, and interpretations of events that have happened to us since conception, believe it or not. And some neuroscientists are now beginning to think and understand that we're bringing belief systems and understandings in through DNA. But let's leave it just at conception, right? So this is the most amazing thing. I'm fascinated with it because we now know that the mind responds to the words we say to it and the pictures we form in our heads. And we know that a tendril of a neural pathway is created in seconds of a thought. And every thought has a biological and physiological response. So if we can just take that little bit on board right away, what it tells us is that we do know through neuroscience that what we think and feel, and more importantly, what we choose to think and feel, has a corresponding response in our reality, both physiological and emotional. So that's incredibly exciting. So my understanding of hypnosis is that we're using something that we have innately in us, because our subconscious mind is with us all the time. People think, oh, the therapist suddenly conjures up this sudden arrival of a subconscious mind. And you and I know that's not true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's something that we're utilizing that is already innate in us. It's a part of our brain. And it's a part of our brain that goes back a long, long way. And it's wise, it's intuitive, and it understands everything. So all we're doing is, you and I are facilitators. Facilitators for the client to access their feelings, their emotions, and their interpretation of what's happened to them since conception. And being in hypnosis is not about being controlled. You know this, Jan, isn't it? We know that actually you're choosing this. You're choosing to go into a focused, relaxed state of mind so you can access these memories, because the subconscious mind stores every single memory.
And the interesting thing that a lot of people discount is that you can actually bring yourself out of hypnosis, where, you know, the sort of prevailing theory that people have is that, you know, you're in that state, and while you're in that state, you know, you have no control.
Absolutely, Jan, absolutely. And that is great, because that dispels another myth, doesn't it? It is a choice. And at any moment you can open your eyes and walk out of the room. You can absolutely choose not to do this. It's your willingness and your commitment and your motivation to make these changes that actually creates the most amazing results in hypnotherapy. And the great thing about it is that you can choose to actually prepare yourself for a hypnotherapy session before you even get there, by saying, I'm on this, I'm going to do this. I'm so excited about the results. Because if you make the chemistry to match the words that you're saying, because we know through neuroscience that the words we say and the pictures we form have a huge corresponding physiological and emotional effect. We're making chemistry like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin when we're fired up and ready to do this work. So if I sort of ring you, Jan, and I want an appointment, I go, yeah, I'll give it a go. Yeah, let's see what happens. I'm already on for a client, because that is really not how it's going to work properly. You do have to participate. Isn't that right?
Yep. No, 100%. I mean, you are, well, the client is integral, obviously, to the process, and I always say to my clients, healing is a journey. It doesn't begin and end with therapy. I say to them, healing is the rest of your life every day, because there is a certain amount of maintenance that one has to do. I'm upfront, I talk to people and I tell them exactly what it is. So I'd love to know your thoughts on what I've just said, like what I say to my clients. So how do you feel about that? I mean, in terms of your own life.
Yeah, well, I think we need to walk our talk, that's for sure. And, in terms of where I've come from and major losses and loss of my physicality, loss of health, loss of people, many, many losses, I'm really on it for myself. Yeah. And I do feel that if I'm going to be encouraging my clients to take this journey of transformation and journey of ultimately their own, becoming the architect of their own lives, then I've got to show a really good example of somebody who is loving life, thriving in life, and maintaining a certain amount of health within the body. And I really love that, because also it helps me to be a better therapist, because if I'm well emotionally and physically, of course I've got that internal battery pack, that energy system that is enough to kickstart some people onto their own healing journey, onto their own path, and getting their lives back on track. So that's really exciting. But yeah, in terms of that, I like to be an example of somebody who's emotionally really well, and then to explain really well. I'm sure you also do a sort of a phone consultation before you take on any clients.
I do.
Yeah, and on that's when I really like to explain to the client what to expect and what's expected of them, because they're parting with their hard-earned money. Yeah. And they need to know that they're making the right choices for them, and also.
And just on that, like I always say to prospective clients, my policy is show up, do the work.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. There is no such thing as a magic bullet, because if the magic bullet worked, there would be no work for us. I'm not saying that prescription medication does not work. It has its place, and I wouldn't be alive today without prescription medication. Sure. But it does have a place, and on top of that place, we have a responsibility to seriously really do that work, because there is a lot of information out there now for us all, even without therapy alone, that being in nature, eating healthily, sleeping correctly, surrounding yourselves by the right people, all of these parameters contribute to a whole. There is no magic bullet. It is holism and holistic living that truly brings us into really being well, and of course then doing some amazing, really great therapeutic work on top.
Well, ironically, I always say to my clients, there is, same as you, I say there is no magic bullet, but hypnotherapy is going to get you there a heck of a lot faster than if you don't have it.
Sure, absolutely. And if I'd have known, Jan, about hypnotherapy going back 15, 20 years, I do believe that my healing journey would have been shortened. Now, healing also is a process, and I realized that I had a lot of maturing to do. I had a lot of processing of stuff from really far back. That takes time. It's a bit like a good wine. I do believe true healing takes a decent amount of time. It's not a flight into health. It is a journey back up the road almost to getting back in touch with your true nature, who you were born as. But I did catapult forward. I found a diary entry of mine when I was withdrawing from prescription drug. I became dependent on prescription drugs following my surgery, many drugs, and it was a very, very, very tough journey. In fact, I said actually that I would rather go through the loss of my husband, the loss of my brother, and neurosurgery again than go through prescription drug addiction, because I was actually dependent for 9 years on benzodiazepines, and it was an incredibly tough thing for me to get through. It took me years to withdraw. But I found a diary entry at that process, and I was so excited when I found it, because I'm actually writing my memoir, and it's been great to open all of these doors again. Some of it's been tough, but it's been great to open these doors again. And what I found inside this diary entry, which I was going, oh my God. So I actually was knowing and understanding intuitively about neuroplasticity those days when I was so sick, and I'd written, I better be careful what I say to myself, because my cells are listening. And this will create more illness if I don't watch my words. I was absolutely astounded. I'd forgotten that I was so aware that what I was thinking could create more disease. And of course, my biggest fear, well, not of course, but I'll share with you, my biggest fear has always been that I will develop cancer. Because it's been part of the story of my brother and I growing up, I've imprinted that. So I've had to do a lot of work around, that's not my journey, that's not my path. My path has been this one, that was his path. So I was really interested in how I was already thinking that way. And when I was trying to recover from paralysis, it took a very long time for my left arm to even begin to move. My left leg came along a lot faster. I was able to limp and find, you know, a bit of independence. But I remember staring at my left arm and staring at my hands and my fingers and willing them to move. Now, how did I know that? How did I know to do that? And what I think is we have an intuitive intelligence inside us. And when we're reduced to actually having to look at the basis of our lives, we come up with these amazing intuitive connections. And of course, what I was naturally doing was making neural connections, neural pathways, both in my thoughts and minding my thoughts, and connecting to my limbs by looking at them and willing them to move. So, you know, that's early hypnosis in answer to a very long answer to your question, Jan.
No, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I think that intuitively we do know a lot. But I think because we go, oh, that's too incredible, you know, until we have the scientific fact to back it up, we're kind of like, no, that can't be so, you know. So I find it immense that you intuitively understood that before you had the intellectual knowledge of what it is that you were actually understanding.
Sure, I'm pretty impressed too, but not because it's me. I'm pretty impressed that we have so much in us, Jan.
Yeah.
And I actually signed myself out of the brain rehabilitation unit in Bristol very, very shortly, within, I think, 4 or 5 weeks of being there, because somehow these are neuro physiotherapists, they're neuro doctors, you know, they're incredibly experienced. They know exactly what's going on for us. But they had parameters put on me that I wasn't ready to do this. I wasn't ready to do that. You're not allowed to get out of bed on your own because you're a danger. And that wasn't sitting very well with me, because they went home at the weekends and I was left with white bread sandwiches and tea, for as far as I was concerned, wasting recovery time between Friday and Monday morning. It was, I knew I was in a hurry, because I understood intuitively that the quicker I make this progress, the more chances I have of making more of it. Because
on that, I want to just make people aware that you're actually a very physical person. I mean, you go on hikes and you're very outdoorsy. So this must have been absolute agony for you.
It was. I don't know if I can think of a strong enough sentence for it, but let's try it. It's like watching paint dry. I felt as if somebody had switched the lights off in me. The lights had been switched off in me many, many times in my whole, you know, existence until then. But it was just some wallpaper paste. You know, I can't think of words that are more bland for me, because yes, very outdoorsy, very enthusiastic about nature, and really felt energized and invigorated by being outside. And one thing I loved to do was be on boats. I was brought up in a boat. We came to Ireland on a boat. So my whole energy system was based around water. And I remember saying, if only I could go on the boat again. And it was always something, if only, if only, if only. And I realized one day I had to stop the if only bit. And I had to just get on with it. And that's exactly what I did. I returned to Ireland against everybody's wishes. And I am so grateful for that team in Bristol. They absolutely got me to where I was before I left. But I think energetically and intuitively, I knew I needed to be among my own. I knew I needed to be in an environment that was going to be cohesive with my belief systems. And also I needed somebody to take the reins off me, because as the doctors had the best will in the world, and they knew what they were doing, but they didn't know who I was. And they didn't know that my history was quite so extreme, and that I was so capable is what I've had this core running right through me all my life. I've always been able to put one step in front of the other. And I'm a great believer, and you probably know this, Jan, as well, that it's lovely to amalgamate conventional and modern medicine with the older traditions and the wise traditions and connections with nature. I love Bruce Lipton, and a great shout out to Bruce Lipton. He is one of my heroes, because he has made it very simply available to us that what we think and what we create for ourselves is what we're in reality going to have. So what I love to say is, yes, of course, we need the experts in medicine, but we also are experts within. We are our own placebo, and so does Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza. All these people, we are our own placebo. Literally, a blind controlled placebo trial is actually taking something you'll think you're taking, and lo and behold, it has the physiological and emotional response.
Well, I was very sorry to interrupt you, but I was just on that, I was very interested to learn from a leading hypnotherapist recently that in order for a drug to be marketed, and I'm going to ask you the question because I haven't met a single person, even in the medical community, who has gotten it right yet. In order for a drug to be marketed, do you know what percentage, out of 100%, what percentage does it need to be effective in order to be marketed?
Now you've got me, because I read that a couple of weeks ago, but it's something ridiculous like 10% or 7%.
About 5%.
Yeah, I thought it was really low.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is an amazingly interesting bit of information.
Well, because that means 95% of what makes a drug effective is actually our brain, which is incredible.
And this is the business we're in. And this is really what is very exciting, because we're creating a placebo. We're instructing the subconscious mind to go back to its original imprint and coding.
Correct.
And, you know, that's what I love about this, because we can nearly say 90% of everybody who's conceived is conceived with the greatest expectations about life, and have the probably health in the way, you know, that is almost like an imprint and coding. And remember, the subconscious mind doesn't forget anything. So, hey ho, what we do is we instruct to go back and create that exact set of parameters right now in the here and now. And if you're creating the chemistry to match this, you've got a belt and braces approach. I also love working on the conscious brain as well, because we know the conscious brain is the wishes, desires, and needs part of our brain. It's about 5-10%, right? And then we've got this subconscious mind, which is the vast bank of information. But if we get the conscious brain working with the subconscious brain, we've got nearly 100% moving in the right direction. And so if our clients are really on board with us and working with us and following through the lifestyle changes and maybe some dietary changes or maybe some supplements, and they're working towards a wonderful beginning of really walking themselves into their own true transformations. And that is so empowering.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about what we do, because, you know, I haven't yet met, you know, somebody in our sphere who doesn't work holistically in the sense of diet, exercise, you know, mindset training. It's very powerful, the combination of all of these things. And I know that, you know, there are, you know, traditionally, I think, you know, it was a very sort of a one-track approach. You know, we just dealt with mind and just dealt with conscious mind. And, you know, somebody was saying to me the other day that in order to get the same results that we get in 3 sessions, you would have to go for an equivalent of 300 psychotherapy sessions. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I attended a brilliant psychologist while I was going through benzodiazepine withdrawal. I had 47 symptoms. With all due respect to myself, I was insane for a period of time. And I don't say that lightly. And I mean it when I say it. I was pretty insane. I understood the physiological repair work that needed to be done in the receptors. When you come off benzodiazepines, it's literally a physical regrowing of receptors. So it's not like coming off something like heroin or cocaine where you can go cold turkey and you don't run the risk of dying. With benzodiazepines, it has to be a very slow withdrawal. And at the time, the doctors didn't really know how to do this. This was something I had to learn myself. And I came across a lady called Professor Heather Ashton. And she was the only person who'd actually done any form of a trial on withdrawing from benzodiazepines. So I found her book. It was a logbook. But what was going on, I had to literally do this and come through it. Sorry, what was your question, Jan? I'm just coming around to something else.
No, it's fine. Carry on. It's fine.
I'm going off on a tangent.
No format. There's no format. We're having a conversation. It's fine.
No, but I want to know what your question was again. What did you ask me? I know I'm going down the route of benzodiazepines for a reason.
What's that when we both forget?
We're both forgetting. That's excellent. Well, I'll continue on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, in terms of withdrawing from benzodiazepines, it took me an awful long time. I had to really get in touch with parts of me that I had never, ever, ever had to examine or face or live with before, because it literally drove me insane. And, you know, it's depression, it's suicide ideation, it's homicidal tendencies, it's itching, can't sleep, insomnia, it's jerking, it's brain zaps. This was my experience, and maybe it's not the same for every person withdrawing, but I had a very, very tough withdrawal. Absolutely. The most isolating experience. So this is why I'm getting to it. I knew there was a reason why we're talking about this, because I had this wonderful psychologist called Lisa Brinkmann. And Lisa Brinkmann was a German psychologist, and I attended her twice a week for a while, and I attended her once a week for a very long time. Now, in terms of psychotherapy and psychology and moving forwards, I've been to see many psychotherapists, many counselors, many mediators, many, many therapists. I needed it over the years. And all were very supportive. It was always something that just kept me going from week to week. If I hadn't had Lisa and her skills when I was withdrawing for benzodiazepines, I'm not sure how I would have coped. In terms of, it was 1 hour a week of an outlet. I literally used to go and cry because my brain was so sore and so damaged. I just needed to download to some other human being who was going to hear me. Because interestingly, when you're going through benzodiazepine withdrawal, or my experience was, people know how to help when it's paralysis. People know how to help when it's a broken leg, or they know even better when it's you've lost somebody tragically.
Yeah.
When you go into the realm of mental illness, people are completely and utterly de-skilled. They don't know how to respond, they don't know how to connect, and that is nobody's fault. I'm very clear on that, because I didn't know what I needed either. I literally was going from minute to minute for a very long time, and I mean years. So there was no space for anyone to come in and help me, because agoraphobia was so profound. I couldn't see people. It was so bad. But that 1 hour of a professional every week was just enough for me to feel safe, because she had the professional hat on and she had her qualifications. And she always said to me, Rachel, I don't fear you're going to take your life. She always reassured that of me, because I kept questioning, you know, she always reassured me. So in a long-winded response to that, I believe that psychotherapy and talk therapy is vital and important to a lot of people, because a lot of people now live in isolation. A lot of people don't have community. A lot of people don't have friends they can trust. A lot of people work ridiculous hours where they don't have time to go and socialize. So it although it's sad, it kind of fills in a place, from my perspective, in there. Community is so vitally important to our emotional welfare.
Sure.
Psychotherapists, of course, they work in the subconscious mind. They just do it slightly differently. And so I think we're all headed in the right direction and in the same direction. But I would agree with you that particularly rapid transformational therapy sort of bypasses a lot of that trying or hoping to stumble upon the subconscious cause.
Absolutely.
With hypnotherapy, clinical therapy, we can specifically find out what is that root cause. Once we find that out, of course, we can move the client forward much, much more quickly. But I will hasten to add that psychotherapy and counseling and all of these other therapies have a wonderful place, and hypnotherapy isn't for everybody. So
Sure.
I like to leave the floor open to people to say, look, here's the information, pick a therapy that resonates with you, that feels right, because you're going to do really well in it.
And that's why I love the combination that I'm doing now with the life coaching and the hypno, because, you know, I really see the value in giving that extra support to my clients. And they seem to really enjoy it as well, because, you know, it depends on the clients, of course. I mean, as I'm sure you know too, you know, we'll meet either once a week or once every 2 weeks, or even sometimes once a month. It just depends. But it certainly is, you know, I do see the value in that. But I'm also have to say that with the hypnotherapy, and that's why I say, if there is a silver bullet, it's definitely hypnotherapy, because you're seeing results so much quicker. And just to have a little bit of support in between is phenomenal too. So yeah, definitely seeing that
I'm with you,
working.
Jan. Absolutely with you on it. And I mentor my clients if they book in for it. That's how I work.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients, they're good on their own, they're independent. Some clients just need a bit more support as they process. And that's a very exciting journey for us to hold the space for that client. It's a very privileged position, and it's fun because they gallivant their way through it. And they have that person, you know, just to check in and say, yeah, what's happening here? I just say to them, it's like a mirror. I'm just the mirror back to you, so you can just have a better look at it, because sometimes we're too close to the trees to actually figure out which is the right way for me, or right choices. And it's exciting. And I love the fact that now we make therapy an exciting process. It's not, you know,
it is dynamic.
It's completely dynamic, isn't it, Jan? And it's really, really quite fun. And so, yes, I'm with you on that. And, you know, I mean, the thing is, people can make progress at their own pace as well. And that allows for individuality. It allows for different backgrounds and belief systems and cultural mores, because this is all what we're about, is taking the person as a whole and seeing them as a person-centered and individual. And I think that it is so, so exciting to excite the client into believing and knowing that they're actually the architect of their own existence. They just need the tools and a little bit of a roadmap to find their way through it. And then before you know it, they're flourishing. And that is a privilege for sure.
Now tell me, because one of the things that I'm very curious about is the book.
Oh, right. Yes.
What's happening? When will that be available to us?
When will it be available? I hope towards the end of this year. It's sort of we're finishing off right now. It's my memoir. And what I've done is I've written my life story down in an exciting way, I hope, because as you can hear from me, I'm not the type of person to say, woe me, or feel sorry for myself in any shape or form. And not that I'm Pollyanna-ish. It's just that I have such an immense amount of gratitude and curiosity for this existence, this human life that I have. So the thrust of the memoir is to tell it as it is, because I tell my life as it is. I don't hold any secrets, really. And also to throw a light on this journey of mine, this life that is there to illuminate and inspire somebody else to truly believe that if one person can go through literally trauma after trauma after trauma, and loss after loss after loss, and culminating in prescription drug dependency, and recover from that, and physically recover from paralysis, and go on to lead a life of great fulfillment and excitement and joy and gratitude. And I feel as if I've been reawakened, I must say. And I can truly put my hands together, Jan, and say I am so grateful for every one of my traumas and every one of my challenges, because I feel that I have grown exponentially and enormously, and I don't think I would have done before if that hadn't have happened to me. So I wanted this book to be, yes, my life story, because it is remarkable, and also as to be a lantern in front of somebody, a light for somebody to say, look, just keep the faith, keep the foot going in front of the other, keep your mind closed, have a vision, yes, but take it incrementally. You're walking your way through this. You can do it. And I'm here to illuminate the path for you, to show you that we can literally take charge and become the architects of our lives. And Jan, the reason why I'm writing the book, and of course the why is so important. Why do we do these things? And my why is because I had a lot of people on the sidelines to help me. I had acupuncturists, I had homeopaths, I had therapists, I had yoga teachers. I had a lot of people to help me. I had a lot of people to really show me how to improve physically. I was lonely on my journey to recovery. I would have loved that somebody had have shone the light for me, because I was terribly lonely in this journey. I was figuring it. I was trying to work it. I was in this alone. And in those days, you see, we didn't really have the internet, or we didn't have so openness about our journeys. We had to sort of keep a stiff upper lip, really. And so this is another reason why I'm writing this book, is to say, look, yes, terrible things do happen. And yes, you will need to process. And yes, you will need to go through the pain. But guess what? You will also come to a place at some point where you will be grateful, you will have peace, you'll have harmony, you'll have serenity again. And it is your choice to do so. So that's the real essence behind my book. If I'd have had that book to read when I was in the throes and the depths of my terrible, tragic journey, I do feel I would have had, it would be like somebody shoulder to shoulder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really what it's about. So, and I'm excited to tell my story, because I was quiet for long enough, and now I'm back into my full health and, you know, really enjoying life. That we have to work at it every day. And people may say to me, oh yes, but you know, I say I work at my emotional health every day. I never have a day go by without recognizing my need and my responsibility to take care of my emotional and physical health. It is a gift, and I'm taking this gift now through these experiences, and I am reverently holding my gift of life close to my heart.
It's amazing. And I have to say, just following your Instagram is just, you know, your photos are just amazing. And I just, every time I see them, I just think of your journey and what you've been through and what you've conquered. And I literally just stand amazed at everything.
Oh, thank you, Jan. That's really nice of you to say. Thank you. I take all my own photographs. I made a decision when I became a therapist, and I didn't know anything like Facebook or Instagram and all of this presence that we have on social media now. And I just made a decision that I'm going to have photographs that are organic, that belong to me. So I'm out and about a lot, and I take pictures, and I just like this world. I love this planet. And for me, it's just a pleasure to share part of my life through photographs. And I just think that there's nothing more inspiring, actually, than sea and land and sky.
I was going to say, you know, I get, because I know your story, obviously, I get a real, like when I look at what you put out there, I get this real sense of, here is somebody who's gone through this. I can't even say, there is no superlative for the immensity of trauma that you have been through in life. But you have a real sense, looking at your photos, that here is this woman who's been through this time in her life and has entered into this newness and this real, genuine, sincere appreciation for what she's experiencing and therefore sharing on Instagram. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's fun. Thank you, Jan, for that. And I'm glad that they resonate with you, because I'm hoping they resonate with other people. And it is fun. I always encourage my clients to look out the window, even if you're stuck in an armchair. Look out the window and notice the beauty of that leaf. Look at the detail in the leaf. Yeah. See the amazing creation, because we can become quite bland and we can have sort of, you know, non-rose tinted glasses on because of what life does to us. And again, we're all about brain training. If we train the brain to focus, we see the detail. When we see the detail, we see the detail in somebody's face. We see the detail of the sky. And this is a way of changing your chemistry inside your body, because it allows you to believe that you belong. And if you believe that you belong, you're no longer different to everybody else. You're no longer the outcast. You're no longer that person who's only got this illness or that. You actually belong to this creation. Yeah. And this fires me up every day when I go out. I also have hens. I have 10 hens. And that's my quirky country woman little hangout, and my hens.
Organic eggs.
Organic eggs, and great fun. You know, again, it's about connecting with something else, another being, and serving it and looking after it and finding the individuality in it. So what I invite people to do is go back and look at life again. Go back and look at it with the eyes of a child. Yeah. Because when we were children, we ran, we jumped, we skipped. Why don't we do that now? Because life is still the same existence. The universe is still as beautiful as it was when we were a child. The air is still the same air that we breathe. And if we can do this, we're inviting other people to join us as well. And we make a great, fun bunch of people who are walking the same path towards happiness, contentment, because contentment is my word. I use the word happiness, but I think happiness for me is too much of a pinnacle. It's too much of a place that we get to and then we need to hold on to it. Sure. If we have a core of contentment running through us, I truly believe that that's when we can face anything that's coming our way. Because we're not on that eternal search for that where far out there place that is, if I can do this, when I get there. Contentment is saying, yeah, this is an amazing thing to be actually alive. Yeah. And that changes how we view a lot of stuff, in my opinion.
Well, you've given me like so much stuff in this talk, but this is like the question I'm about to ask is my ultimate question to ask anyone. And it is the question that I often ask my clients, because I love people's stories. Like, I love them. And I think that's what connects all of us, you know, who's been through what, when, who, how, and why. But I suppose my wrap-up question to you would be, out of every part of your life, whether good, bad, beautiful, ugly, what has been the most significant life lesson that you can leave us with?
The most significant, like, there are many, Jan. That is a difficult question to ask in my case.
I'm sure.
In my case, I think that my biggest life lesson, as I'm thinking about it right here and now, is that to remind myself every day of my goodness, that I was born a good person, that I always was a good person, and that my intentions and my integrity have always been intact. So I always used to fear that I'd hurt somebody. That was my biggest fear, that I might hurt somebody. So I was always very super conscious of what I said, how I said it, and then I'd revisit in the evening or in the night in my bed. Did I say it right? Did I say it right? Clearly, huge lack of self-esteem. And, you know, that probably has hurt me more than a lot of other deeper, bigger, more grand tragedies, because I realized that I was hurting myself by not having a relationship with myself that was supportive. I didn't grow up in a family where it was very supportive. It was, you know, the opposite of that. So I had a dialogue, and in a dialogue that I was always wrong, that I had always done something wrong. So the biggest learning that I ever really got was to, one, come into contact with myself, to develop a loving relationship with myself, and to support myself. Because when I learned to like me and to stop questioning had I done something wrong, which is literally like a parent, you know, what have you done wrong now? It was so destructive inside. Oh. And so the biggest thing I have learned through all of this tragedy and loss and trauma is that to gain a loving connection with yourself, that heals a multitude. It heals an absolute multitude, because you're no longer the guilty party. You're no longer that person who could have damaged or hurt somebody else. Because of course our intentions are always good. If I inadvertently have hurt somebody else, it wasn't intentional, and I can forgive myself for that. So that to me is the biggest thing I've learned through the whole of this, is I can actually safely love myself and enjoy loving myself. And that relationship I have with me now, I've got my own best friend with myself, and that makes me happy. So that's the biggest transformation for me. And I'm sure you're expecting me to say learning to walk again. I don't think so. I think it's just being at home with myself. It makes me very emotional to even say this, because I realize this is the truth. Yes, it is actually being at peace with me and liking me for who I am.
Awesome. And if people want to get in touch with you, work with you, how do they go about doing that?
Well, Jan, that's a really nice thing for you to ask. Actually, I'm moving into a new business, which is motivational, inspirational speaking. It's time now for me to share my journey. It's time now for me to share my professional tips and skills with people, so that they can indeed move themselves forward. So I'm inviting anyone who's interested in having me speak to engage with me. I have a lot of amazing positivity to offer. I've got some really good grounded skills that I've formed myself through my journey to recovery. And I've got my professional rapid transformational skills, my clinical hypnotherapy skills, and a good dose of immense wisdom. So I'm now starting this business of inspirational, motivational speaking. So if you want to work with me in that realm, please get in touch. I have a website, rachelgotto.com. My Instagram, if you want to see some of my organic homemade pictures,
and
Rachel _Gotto. I've just started that page, and my Facebook page is Rachel Gotto RTT Hypnotherapy, and I'd love to see you on any of those platforms. But don't forget, guys, that Jan is also a rapid transformational therapist, and a very, very intuitive and amazing one at that. So, you know, this is what's important about. We're sharing skills here, we're chatting, and we're opening it out for people. So thank you, Jan, for allowing me the platform, and I really, really great to chat with you this morning.
Thank you so much. And it's been such an honor, if I may say, and a privilege and a pleasure. I just, you know, I wish you all the strength, all the joy, just to carry on going from strength to strength as you have over the last few years. I mean, I know you just celebrated a certain milestone birthday we won't mention.
We can, because I have never had a happier birthday. I was 50 on the 20th of May. I can honestly say every decade up until the 51, there weren't happy birthdays. This has been, I'm saying, the start of the rest of my life. I'm 50, I'm celebrating it, and I'm excited about what's to come. There's so much more. And yeah, let's do this journey, all of us together, and really create a life of contentment.
It's really been a privilege. Thank you so much for being here today.
And for me, Jan, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an absolute